Just 1 second. Okay, Marimer, you want to do a mic check? 1, 2.
I'm sorry, what's happening? Just I couldn't hear anybody or anything. So
okay, you're here. She's here. Excellent. Okay, so just a few more minutes. We're waiting for Matt and Chini. Just 2 seconds. Let me see where they are. Oh, Matt is here.
Oh, I'm here.
We have another Matt.
Can you guys hear me? We've been banned from using Zoom as a law firm, so I'm having to re-establish what if I can connect. Let's have a look.
Right. Okay.
See what I can do here.
Okay.
But yes, nice to meet you, everyone, and hello, other Matt.
Hello, other Matt.
All right. Chini. So Chini is the only person we're waiting for. Oh, I'll just make a quick announcement. Hey, big up yourselves, No Long Ting crew. I see you all in the house. Very glad to see you. Really happy to see you guys. And we're also going to catch up later with you. Now, as usual, for those who have data issues, we are live streaming now on YouTube. So if you stream here, especially for those in West Africa, if your stream is a bit laggy, just it's live on YouTube right now, and then you can always catch up on it, right? So we are just waiting for one more panelist to join us, Chini Reddy, and then we are gonna start the session. But thank you all. Just grab a brew, grab something. We'll be starting off shortly.
Hey, Brian, I'm here.
Hi, Chini. Whereabouts are you? Just raise your hand so that I can pin you. Add to pin. I see you now. Let me make you co-host as well. Right. So everybody is co-host, and we are now just waiting for Matt Green to come back. All right. Let me just give Matt a quick call to see what technicals are happening on his end, and then we can jump off ASAP.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Cool. And then I think you're about to see me. You lucky
Right.
people.
Let me just pin you and make you co-host as well. Right. Well, we have everybody in the party. Chini, we can't see you. We now see you. Wait, whereabouts is Marimer? Marimer is here. Let me
I'm
pin.
here.
Right, you there. So everybody is here. Right. I guess we can jump off. It's officially 4 p.m. in the UK and 11:04 EST. Guys, welcome to CryptoMondays Caribbean. This is your moderator, Brian Sanya Mondoh from Blockchain Lex Group, and we are happy to have all of you here today with us. And panelists, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to my students who are in the Zoom today. So we have this bootcamp going on called No Long Ting Bootcamp. So it's a Web3 and blockchain bootcamp that is running for 2 weeks now. And they are really interested in this. So they've come here full swing. And to the students today, I'm going to start with my top left, which could be your top right. We have Shannon Almborg in the house. She's going to give us her own introduction because she does a lot. Like all our panelists, they do a lot. So it's going to be long talk on my part, and I'm going to avoid that. We have Matt Hogan from Connecticut, and we have Adilah Holivay, and we have Keniel Ledgister. We have Chini Reddy from TRM Labs. Keniel is also part of Blockchain Lex Group as well. Chini Reddy from TRM Labs. We have Matt Green, partner at Lawrence Stevens UK. And we have Marimer Cruz, who also handling many things. So it's a long thing for me to say. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how this session is going to be and then hand it over to the panelists. This session basically is about tracing the chain. When crypto assets are stolen or dissipated, there's a procedure that's followed. And these are the people who like when you call Ghostbusters for help, these are the people you call. Who you going to call? You're going to call this lot. So basically, this is a nose to tail approach. From when you are fiddling on your devices or your laptop and then something happens and you click on it and then your funds go boom. There's law enforcement, there's chain analysts, there's lawyers, and there's other experts and people within the industry. So Shannon, I'm going to hand over the mic to you for your introduction, and then you're going to pass it around. And then we are going to start our session.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Detective Shannon Almborg. I am a detective in the Financial and Cybercrime Unit in Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, which is a jurisdiction in the state of Virginia. I have been with law enforcement for 11 years now, the last five or six, which have been a detective in the Financial and Cybercrime Unit. And it's probably about 2.5 to 3 years ago is when we first started getting cryptocurrency cases in my unit, and we started figuring out what this was and how to trace it and what to do with these cases.
Thanks, Shannon. Matt Hogan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Hogan. I'm a detective with the Connecticut State Police. I've been with my agency here about almost 13 years. In that time, I'm also a task force officer with the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force and a co-founder of our cryptocurrency working group at our own agency here at the State Police.
Thanks, Matt. Adilah.
Hi, y'all. My name is Adilah Holivay, and I am the ambassador for Women in Cryptocurrency. Basically, we are an association of women who have came together under the name of cryptocurrency. We specialize in different departments and areas of cryptocurrency, some at the regulatory state, some at the legal state. But the Association for Women in Cryptocurrency essentially is an awareness organization. But outside of this organization, I am a cryptocurrency auditor and investigator. And what I do personally at my company, DNA Legacy Blockchain Brokerage, is I do investigations, advisory services, and compliance for cryptocurrency and different types of aspects of blockchain technology. So that's just a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Adilah. Keniel.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Keniel Ledgister. I am the assigned attaché regionally for the Caribbean region. I've been with IRS going on 20 years. 20 years. I've been serving the capacity of attaché going on my 4th year. Essentially, I'm the go-to for anything financial crimes related. So appreciate y'all. Good to be here as well.
Thank you very much, Keniel. Chini.
Hi, all. I'm Chini Reddy. I'm Senior Legal Counsel at TRM Labs. We're a blockchain intelligence company that services both private and public sector entities. Previously, I'm an attorney. I started my career in finance transactions, and then since have sort of moved on to the private sector, spending time at a couple different companies, and now at TRM, where I support product and operations.
Thanks, Chini. Matt Green.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, subject to where you are. My name is Matt Green. I am a partner at law firm Lawrence Stevens. I've been involved since, I think, this all started in terms of litigation, where we trace funds along the relevant blockchains and get urgent injunctions in court using blockchain analytics to recover funds from persons unknown, chasing shadows, seeking recourse from a variety of different people, including North Korean hackers, etc. I'm doing one currently now. Brian was asking me questions. I was terrible at getting back to him today, purely because I'm working on one at the moment where it's gone to a variety of different exchanges, which is a bit painful. I'm also the chairman of a working group at Tech UK, which is a lobbying body for everything tech, specifically for the blockchain and digital assets sector.
Thanks, Matt. Marimer.
Hi, I'm Marimer Cruz, known as Crypto Rican Queen. I am Gen X. I just turned 50 today. I'm a crypto consultant. I know. 25, actually over 30 years in business. I'm deeply immersed in the world of Web3, DeFi, crypto mining, bot trading, developing here and there. I created coins across several blockchains, develop NFTs, and specialize in Web3 marketing. I also offer social media marketing services tailored specifically for crypto projects, and founder of Crypto Equalizer, where I'm committed to breaking down barriers and empowering others in driving innovation in this exciting digital economy.
That's what it is. It is what it is. Now, I'm just going to start this thing really light. Yeah. So when it comes to crypto assets and digital assets, is there a unanimous agreement as to what it is amongst all of you? You're all in different professions from different, within the Web3 landscape, you all tackle this thing from different viewpoints. So is there a unanimous perspective on this? And I would like us to start with Marimer because she is more connected to the people on the ground, because the rest of you are like on a level 2 of how it happens. So she deals with the Jane Doe and John Doe every day. So Marimer, is there a unanimous agreement of what crypto assets are, and how does it play out in your day to day?
There's so much to crypto. It's like that's a very, very scary question, but not scary, but like interesting question. It depends on what people are focusing on, right?
Right.
There's some people that are like Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. So I would say yes, there's a basic ethos in the crypto space where, a lot of us are like, hey, on bank and all this stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of walls that make the space very difficult to navigate the longer you're in it, if that makes sense. It's like you rabbit holes and it's like, oh my God, I found this, I found that. And it's just like,
Right. And so I'm going to pass this over to the people from the US, basically, because you guys probably have a similar view or regional view of looking at things. And I know Matt from the UK is trying to, Matt Green, I know from the UK tries to define it differently. So let's allow our counterparts from America to filter down, whittle down what it is so that the audience really understands the varying perspectives. So Shannon, do you just want to chime in on that? And then Matt, Adilah, Chini, Keniel, however you guys want to piggyback on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I am not in the regulatory aspect of any of this, but I can tell you from my perspective as a detective, as somebody who investigates cryptocurrency losses and scam, it's as far as I'm concerned, in my role in all of this, it's if somebody invests their money in cryptocurrency, whether it is Bitcoin, like the original one, or if it's one of the new tokens, or whatever else on any of the blockchains, we're going to treat it as a cryptocurrency investment lost, and categorize it as cryptocurrency. So I know this is a really broad topic. It is an industry that is constantly changing. We don't have, to my knowledge, a whole lot of regulations in the US, that give us a whole lot of clear definitions. There's been some back and forth between, the SEC about how to categorize it as a commodity, this, that, and the other. But honestly, just from a basic investigative perspective, if you bought cryptocurrency and suffered a loss, we're going to count it as part of the crypto world and investigate it as such.
Yeah, cool. Matt, Hogan, Adilah, Chini, Keniel.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we consider it a digital store of value, right? It doesn't really matter what version it is. It could be Bitcoin, it could be Ethereum, it could be Solana. It doesn't make a difference really. If it is based as part of a payment system or used as a way to exchange value, then we're going to consider it virtual currency. So it could be, I think any of those really fit because the ecosystem changes so quickly. So we, especially, in DeFi stuff and, gaming and AI, you can't really keep track of all these things. So if someone used fiat cash to pay something for it, I think that by itself is kind of how we encompass the definition. I don't care what Gary Gensler says or anybody else. It's, depends on what I think it's been used for.
Okay.
No, you guys,
Defined upon the value itself, right? It's a digital asset. So digital asset and layers of the blockchain, they have specific values assigned to it, even non-fungible tokens. So I guess at this point, like everyone is saying, it is an investment vehicle, it is a tool. It could be utilized for good and it could be utilized for bad. So it takes on, depending on what you're utilizing it for, it takes on a different definition. At some point, though, there are some regulations that allows us to be able to file our taxes appropriately if we're holding these digital assets. And I'm sure Keniel could speak a little bit more to that, but it has a value. Its value is on the chain, but at the same time, I would call it or classify it as a asset. No matter if it's utilized illegally or properly, it's still an asset.
I 100% agree with you, Adilah. I think one thing to point out specifically right now, right, regulations, policies still being developed. I do think we'd have to stay tuned to how elections and everything play out in the coming months, how we'll steer things. But as right now, from the IRS's perspective, it is property. It is no different from, say, right now, your house. It's something you could leverage. It's something that when you buy or sell, as you both have mentioned, that there's an expectation if there's a gain, there might be a taxable act where you pay a tax on top of the profits, or if there's loss, depending on your situation, right, there might be something you could write off. But for the sake of this, right, there's still things that are still unclassified, undetermined. It wouldn't be, as of right now, considered a currency like fiat. Is just property. So it's no more valuable than a, say, painting. And as well, everything is concerned, it's more so your value to that. Or in this case, someone else's value, how much you're willing to pay for it and how much you're willing to sell for something. So for the sake of conversation, it's classified as a property from the US perspective.
So can I throw you a monkey wrench? Would you say that it's an asset when you're dealing with, because we're talking about 2.5 million cryptocurrencies, and every day they're making over 500,000 coins. Would you say that about the DeFi space? Because again, I deal with centralized, I deal with decentralized meme coins right now. There's a trend in meme coins. So I guess depending on where you're looking at it, top down or bottom up, that's what for me, because I'm looking from down here, because I'm trading, right? I'm teaching people how to deal with these technologies. It's just a lot, right?
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm assuming that question was pointed at me. So in my opinion, now, all right, so it's tough for me right now, right? So I'll give you my personal opinion. It is property. Now, would you value every piece of thing and asset? The definition of asset is almost, it holds value, stores value. I think the issue everyone in society is having is like, how do you qualify this thing that's quasi-tangible yet intangible, right? So it's not just, we could have the argument about currencies, right? So I could hold up a US dollar and be like, this is $5. We're all going to agree because it says so, but it's also the perceived value of it, right? So just like back in the day, if you want to go back to history now, it was backed by gold. It had some backing. The question one would ask is, what is backed by crypto? Is it a government? Is it stored value? So that's where I think society in general, having had this conversation numerous times with your economists, your other financial professionals, are you people who just genuinely believe it's a scam versus people are saying, yeah, no, this is going to take over the world? It's tough because they're all right. It's the same thing with cash, right? You could utilize cash for scam as well as anything anything in society with as gold or cash.
And what do you do with the NFTs that don't fall into the category of currency either, but they have some kind of value, right? Non-fungible tokens.
I can jump on that question. I'll take that one. And
hold on. Okay, Shannon. Okay, go on. Because Chini hasn't said nothing yet. But yeah, you can take it.
I'll take this one, then Chini, I'll let you talk that
cool.
one. So for NFTs, it's going to be the same thing as cryptocurrency, because here in the US, we look at them as digital assets or digital property, right? So, whether you hold Bitcoin or an NFT, it's all going to be categorized as the same thing as a digital asset. If there is value added to it, whether or not, that's a whole nother discussion about, what is backing that, like Keniel said, but ultimately, whether or not it's an NFT or, your typical cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something else, it's all going to be categorized under digital property or a digital asset.
Right. Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah, I would just second that. So from our perspective, my experience is more in the tracing side of it. It really is as Shannon said, digital asset, and that's really what comes to play when we're trying to figure out everything from tracing to asset seizure.
Thanks, Chini. Matt Green, because I know the UK position is slightly more nuanced. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so digital assets is a term that's sort of come up relatively recently. So just as a sort of timeline of things, there was a jurisdictional task force paper back in November 2019, which basically stated that the law of property in England and Wales, and therefore across the globe in common law jurisdictions, recognize property as being two things: either things that are tangible, i.e. something that you can pick up. I pick up my phone, that's something tangible and therefore can be property, or can be a legal right, like a right to a debt, for instance. And those were broadly the two categories of properties that we were allowed. And that UK jurisdictional task force paper said that over time, there has been an increase in the need for property to for the definition of property to be allowed to be wider, to fall into assets that aren't those two things. And it suggested that cryptocurrency broadly should fall into that category. I then relied on that paper in a case in December 2019, where we sought an interim injunction in the state of what's called a proprietary injunction, i.e. an injunction or an order to do or not do something over Bitcoin. A proprietary injunction was an injunction over that specific property. So we had to ask the court to decide whether Bitcoin could be property. And in December 2019, the judge said that Bitcoin and crypto assets broadly could be property. Since then, there was a few other cases. So there was a case by a lady called Lavinia Osborne, who I think Brian knows very well and is part of his wider community. She sought to recover an NFT, and the judge declared that NFTs were property, although they already were. We had the case of the judgment out 2-3 weeks ago of Deloya, which was another case in the UK, which said that stablecoins like Tether are property, which we know they are already. This falls in line with the chronology of the Law Commission, who were putting together a paper to figure out the ways in which to manage this kind of law, because there had been question marks over whether crypto assets and digital assets broadly, crypto assets being a category of digital assets, could be property. They prepared various consultations and papers, and there were all kinds of tests that they decided should fall into a bracket of digital assets. They decided overall just to skip the story of it. What they were going to do was, instead of having a list of things that are digital assets, which would, as by reference, they include crypto assets, carbon tokens, digital files, email addresses, domain names, etc., that they were going to propose a bill to the UK Parliament to say that objects should be able to, in theory, enjoy property rights, even if they are not tangible things or legal rights to things. And the reason that that was proposed was because they wanted to ensure that the legislation was future-proofed, so they didn't limit themselves as to what digital assets could be or what property could be. But also because when judges make these decisions at law, they are bound by precedent, and precedent says that they could only be tangible things or legal things. And so that legislation allows judges that flexibility to do what they need to do at law and future-proof themselves. It's sort of a way to leave the door ajar to make law for themselves. So in our jurisdiction, digital assets means, or is a broad umbrella term for a variety of different things. Crypto assets, it could be tokens of some kind, it could be carbon credits, it could be digital files. In theory, it could be certain data networks, it could be potentially even MP3 files that we would have, I suppose, considered would have been property in the first place, but that seems to be a bit of a question mark. So that's a very short history of what's happened in England. That bill has been slated. It was slated in Parliament for September 11th this year and should be debated shortly.
All right, cool. Thanks, Matt. Now let's move to what everybody wants to know today, myself included. What happens when a bridge is compromised or your wallet is compromised and you lose your assets. So like, where do we start? So Marimer, I'll come back to you. Assuming you're playing on your device, on your wallet, doing your own thing or just chilling, and then you get a message that your wallet has been compromised. What happens like when you're talking to people every day? What do they tell you? Like, Marimer, this has just happened. What do I do next? And then we'll move sequentially to members of the audience. I can see you're raising questions, but just hold up a bit. We're going to come to your questions towards the end, please, because we want to exhaust this topic properly, and then we'll come to you slightly later. And then we're going to move into the law enforcement and then to the chain analysts like Chini, and then actually Matt Green and Chini, you'll take us through like what happens when they call upon you as lawyers and as the chain analyst as well, because Matt, I know you've worked with some chain analysis companies as well. So Marimer, let's go back to you, please.
Okay, well, sadly, there's a lot of times that once somebody loses their funds, and there's a lot of social media scams where people are like saying, hey, do you want me to trade for you and stuff like that? A lot of the times that people lost their funds and that's it. They can't really get them back. Like I said, I was talking in the meeting that we had of a client that thought it was talking to a centralized exchange, KuCoin, and it wasn't this exchange. And this person took over his computer. Please, nobody let anybody get in your computer, no matter what they say. No exchange is going to ask you that. And basically use his account as a mule account, moving all these other people's cryptocurrencies to his account, and then move like $12 million out of that account, which looks like, who did it? My client, right? He didn't even know that he had been scammed. So a lot of the times people don't even know that they've been scammed.
Wow.
Right? Until it's too late. He contacted several different, because this was like 3 years ago, this specific case, contacted different authorities and nothing really happened with that. So again, it depends what is the case, if it's connected to scams or terrorism, and how much is it, if it's going to happen something or not. But I mean, the things that we can do in the crypto space is amazing. I can, again, as a dev too, I can create a lot of wallets in a second, and then I can send batches of cryptocurrencies to all these wallets at the same time. So you might think somebody that is bought this specific cryptocurrency actually has 100 holders, 1,000 holders, and it's the same person, which is the developer. So there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, and it's just crazy.
Thanks, Marimer. Now we're going to move into law enforcement. And law enforcement, as you take that question, I'm assuming when you get reports, it's kind of two-tier in that one of them could be somebody who's been scammed, or the other one could be nefarious in terms of money laundering or financing of terror as well.
Before that case goes to law enforcement, I would like to say that there are intermediaries like me who are crypto investigators who would be called upon. Maybe they might find me online or maybe word of mouth, and they would call upon me to create a report. And then that report could be sent to law enforcement because we have wallet, we have people, places, and things. Sometimes it helps law enforcement to do their job of investigation. And with that, I'll let law enforcement take at it, because sometimes we have private investigators that come in, and like me, that come in and I make a report for law enforcement. Or I trace those crypto wallets and I tell law enforcement who I think may be the people that have absconded the funds, right? And then that gives law enforcement a lead, because sometimes if they're getting a cold trail and they have to go through the process themselves, it takes a lot longer. If you have intermediary or other types of investigation services, it helps cut down the time of the law enforcement would spend on the case and get it to the right vehicle of regulatory or whoever it needs to go to.
Right. Thanks, Adilah. So you are trained in the chain analytics softwares as well. Right. So why would somebody come to you first and not to Chini's entity first? Or
Well,
it
Chini's
might
entity,
depend.
it goes down to cost. They lost a large lump sum of money and they don't have the money to hire an attorney or specifically go directly to a company like TRM Labs, then they would need to maybe talk to somebody who can guide them and put them in the right direction. A lot of times it's embarrassment. They don't want to, put their business out to a larger company. They want to talk to somebody a little smaller first to figure out where they go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll also just pipe in with this. So in addition to filing with local PD, with filing on IC3 with the FBI, you can also report on community websites. Like we at TRM, we run one called chainabuse.com. And so that allows victims of crypto crime to sort of consolidate reports, find commonality with other people who have filed reports, and then that information is actually sent to law enforcement who have access to our tool. So TRM Labs is a SaaS platform, as well as providing professional services similar to what Adilah was mentioning. And so through our network, we're able to try to help people who are, victims of the same pig butchering scams across different states or different, regions, come together, figure out the commonalities, and then report in hopes that it'll make it easier for law enforcement to action those kinds of claims.
Thanks, Chini. So now we're heading to law enforcement. Keniel, Shannon, Matt, so first of all, Keniel, for you with the IRS, do people come to you straight or they go to Shannon and Matt first?
So humbly speaking, we usually don't interface with individuals in generally. So if IRS is going to be involved and, I'm not going to speak for them, but I could comment based on my experience. So if you have the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security investigators, or United States Secret Service, I didn't want to drop all the letters without explaining who
Too
they
many
are.
organs.
FBI, yeah, all of them, all the letters. In general, the average person is not going to come to us first. You're right. They're going to go to the private investigators. They're going to go to local police. They're going to try to report it to their if we've seen individuals reporting to their congressmen and women as well, which I do encourage, because not to take too much time in saying this, but let's take a step back. If you had $1,000, I want to make it more significant. If you had $1,000 in your wallet and you lost it, right? No matter how you lost it. There's no way to go back and technically trace cash, right? So that's why I'm a huge favor of crypto, because, right, you could actually go online and trace back your wallet depending on the exchange and depending on the type of cryptocurrency. So these digital currencies that afford us a little bit more tools or a little bit more information than you using losing cash out of your wallet per se. This is all in theory, right? Now, so if IRS or in general, all these other three letters that are in federal agency are gonna have or conduct an investigation, I like to use the term, it has to have significant value where there is a harm done to individuals or just the greater society, whether it's money laundering, tax evasion, or terrorism finance. Now, I do love the fact in the chat we threw the IC3 Gov. I think that's a great tool, because what'll happen is that we're all on this webinar right now. What if we all get scammed, but only one of us reported to our local police, one of us calls me, right? Nothing will honestly happen in general, right? Maybe that police officer will do something, but if we all go report it on that one website, and then all of us, the federal agencies, are able to find a common factor, whether it's a gang or individuals, or we see where the wallet, where all these funds are going to that specific wallet or that financial institution, we could now drum up a federal investigation because we have enough resources to point it back to a criminal and possibly have victims. But you're right, I am not the first go-to. Unfortunately, that's the tough part about crypto. Most people are just concerned with their harm, their loss. And for us to really be involved, it has to be on a magnitude worth our involvement.
Are there instances where your involvement doesn't matter? doesn't is not pinned on the value of the claim? Are there particular
Yes. So
instances? Yeah.
100%. All right. So in general, if it's something related to terrorism, anything that'll cause great harm to society, there are child harm, whether it's funding child pornography or exploitation of children, anything around that matter, right? There is no value. There's a life at stake. So we definitely can attribute value to that because it's life, right? So that has no value per se in the sense of monetary value. So we're gonna utilize our resources to put an end to that or identify the perpetrators. But if it's your, unfortunately to say this, if it's your poor grandma that lost her $1,000 investment, we'll try our best to provide proper assistance. But in general, I find that individuals going towards your public companies that are for blockchain analysis, your TRMs, your chain analysis, all those companies, they're probably better suited because they have the tools and the capability to service individuals. But just like I said with my example with the $1,000 theft, it's police may say, or your local police may say, be careful next time. Don't put your wallet in your back pocket, secure your funds. I think you're going to get the same response when it comes to crypto. It's just that there's more tools out there to follow that money per se.
Thanks, Keniel. Shannon, Matt, do you guys say such things?
Ladies first, Shannon, you can go.
Thanks, Matt. So yeah, we on the local level, we do get those $1,000 reports. When grandma lost $1,000 crypto investment, they do come to us, and we, I can tell you in my agency, we do investigate those. It's difficult because there's across the board in the U.S. at least, there's very much a lack of knowledge and resources available to the state and local agencies that get a lot of these individual reports. So when grandma's lost $1,000 worth of crypto and she reports it to her local, police department, they may not know what to do with it. They may not have the training or the tools and the resources available to help as much as they want to. But yeah, certainly when people report it to law enforcement, I always tell my victims, do two things. And whether or not they're in my jurisdiction or another one, report it to your local law enforcement. Even if they can't do anything with it, and if they don't have the tools or the training or the resources to properly investigate your case, they still need to know what's happening in their jurisdiction. They need to understand how big of a problem this is, and they won't unless they are getting those reports directly. So one, report it to your local law enforcement. And then two, also file a report with IC3, because that helps both local and feds. So if the federal system and all the three-letter federal agencies are looking at a case, they can go and look at IC3 reports and take a $1,000 case, and suddenly that $1,000 case, because of the commonalities, is a $5 million case. And now, it might have some additional aspects to it that they're able to then conglomerate all of those cases into one massive case and take that on the federal level. It is also something that state and locals have access to as well. So I use IC3 reports to further my investigations, even if the feds aren't going to touch it and it's going to stay with me. That $1,000 case that I'm looking into from grandma, I can still go to IC3 and look at other reports that have the same, commonalities, and that gives me additional leads as, working it from a local level as well. So certainly report to your state and local law enforcement, and then also report to IC3.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Shannon. Matt, just before you go, I have a question for Shannon. Are there instances where, for example, there's a traffic stop and you flagged something, and then when you follow the chain, it turns out to be like human trafficking or something. So do these tiny claims like the $1,000 grandma thing, have you ever gone down that rabbit hole and something surprising came out of it?
Yeah, it's if you follow it enough, I would tell you that you're always going to find those little rabbit holes, whether, and I've seen enough in my cases where a $1,000 grandma loss case has ties to terrorist financing or has ties to payments for child pornography. Because ultimately, when you're looking at the individuals and the organizations like criminal organization and networks that are responsible for these types of crimes, they're never just doing one thing in my experience. So you're always going to have these little offshoots and ties to, you're going to see a little bit of terrorist financing here or payment for child pornography here. So yes, it always tends to network out and sort of spider web out. And so it's easy to find those threads depending on how hard you look.
Thanks, Shannon. Matt Hogan, please.
Yeah, I agree with her, Shannon. So I guess the issue we see with the $1,000 cases is that it's never just $1,000, right? It may start off as $1,000, but as soon as you trace it 2-3 hops, it commingles with a larger wallet that maintains a balance of several $1,000,000 or whatever, and it goes to an exchange down the road that also at one point had several $1,000,000. So kind of like Shannon's saying, the small cases always connect to something larger. We may use IC3 or other avenues like TRM to build those cases to something larger. But I think that's something people forget, especially at the local and state level. They may have those cases come in and they just kind of, we can't do anything for you because it's $1,000. But you got to think bigger picture. Remember, a lot of these things are interconnected with larger cases. And a shout out to TRM Labs because they do a really great job of helping local and state try to further the mission with a lot of the things they're doing for us. But I mean, I feel like we're at a weird point with law enforcement where we're slightly getting picked up on education on this topic. We're becoming louder on the subject, but where there's still a lot of inner office issues with us trying to get cases worked at larger scale because there's just so many. We're just getting so crushed with cases, and I can only handle so many small ones, and the feds can only handle so many big ones, and we're not getting the connection with all those. So it's just very, very difficult because there's just so many of them. We're getting inundated.
Thanks, Matt Hogan. Keniel, you'd raised your hand up.
Yeah, Matt literally just touched on what I was gonna bring up. Resources are not infinite, right? When it comes to our government, whether it's police, investigators, right? So we have so many of these cases that are popping up. You just don't have enough time or the resources to go after every single one of them. So, right. So as much as people be frustrated with their banks or police, it's like, hey, unfortunately, you do have to realize that you do have to allocate your resources properly, and you cannot go after every single one. So it comes to a point where the question is, and I've been in many a situation where it's like, all right, where do you push this to, right? Should there be another coalition tied to like crypto resolution, where if you either got hacked, just like attorneys, right? They go after these lawsuits when a product fails. Like maybe we should have some sort of coalition or some sort of group that's what they do, whether it's pro bono or a cut of whatever crypto they could recover. Maybe I just create a business plan right there. But the idea is like, what do you do? There's only so much, especially now that things are changing, where essentially I could comfortably say in general, totally across the globe, we're going away from a paper fiat currency now to more digital access to our banking systems, right? So maybe this is something that, even though we're not wholly resolved on how we're going to treat crypto or any other digital assets, maybe these are things we should keep in mind, especially as things are starting to transform in this more digitized world.
Thanks, Keniel. We want to, Mari, I see your hand. Just give me 1 second. So from here, we want to go to where the lawyers come in and the analytics and all that. And Matt Green, you have a case where you've worked with the analytics company and brought them in. But just before we come to the lawyers, Mari, you want to tell us what you're saying?
Yeah. So what nobody has touched the whole thing between global and local, because we got, this is not only one area. It's not United States. We have cases here in the United States that are from other countries, right? Because, the people that created those currencies or the scammers or terrorists are from other countries operating within. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was when they use different technologies like mixers and tumblers and cross-chain transactions and bridges to move funds, which actually obfuscates the whole research of recovery assets. So
thanks, Marimer. So at this point, where do the lawyers come in? Chini and Matt, who's going first?
You decide, Brian.
Much, you gotta chill. Today you made me chill. So Chini, you wanna take it first?
I was going to say, I'll turn this over to Matt because I have more experience with the actual tracing. Is where my practice really
Fair
lies.
enough. Back to you, Matt Green.
Okay, so normally what happens is I get a call from somebody. I'll give you an example of what we're doing right now. This is why you see me vaguely looking at my screen, typing around while I'm on this, because all these things are urgent. But essentially what happens is someone calls you up and goes, hi, I think I've been hacked, or I think I've been a victim of a scam. I don't really know what to do. I'm a little bit embarrassed, and you have to sort of hold their hand through that embarrassment. And you should, because people at all different levels, whether you are basic to this or whether you're very, very high up in all these blockchain companies, people get hacked and scammed all the time. But in any event, we ask for basic details.
Wait, Matt, hold up. So even OGs and them, it doesn't matter what level?
Doesn't matter what level you are. There's plenty of people who get hacked and scammed. It's not a rite of passage, but in some instances it feels like it, because I haven't, and I'm very grateful for that. But I just keep my ledger in a sock drawer, and I barely even know where that is. So, but people do far more interesting trading and open themselves up to situations whereby they're dealing with third parties, right? So, the more you interact, the more likely you are. In any event, it's like walking down the street with cash, right? If you walk down the street with a sack full of cash, you probably get mugged. But if you do it 100 times, you're more likely to get mugged. Anyway. So clients normally come and say, hey, I think I've been hacked. And we'll use this example. This guy bought a hard wallet, let's just call it that, a hard wallet online. He's upgraded them as years have gone by, and he feels as though he may have clicked on a link and bought this hard wallet from someone who wasn't legitimate. And as time has gone on, he's lost £800,000 worth of various tokens. He'd actually traded it in some old Bitcoin to do so. So we ask from him, and we ask generally for people's original address that they custodied, as it were, so their own address, and then the transaction hashes to see where those funds have gone. Because from there, we're able to provide that to an investigator. In many instances, those investigators will be using certain software. TRM is one. There's Chainalysis, there's Global Ledger, there's Crystal, there's tons. I don't really care which one it is. It's whatever the investigator uses. But they're all good and very sensible, and all have their own quirks depending on what's gone on. But from there, when you give it to an investigator, you can see where those funds have gone broadly. And I go back to, so just to pause there. If someone's lost £1,000, and I have had this, I've had £1,000 of Flocky Inu, where has it gone and what do I do? And the answer is, I'm a private lawyer for hire, pretty much. You know, it's not economical for me to be hired by you to go and chase down £1,000 worth of Flocky Inu. So normally it has to be a relatively significant amount, hundreds of thousands of pounds normally. That is a lot of money for me, but in instances under £500,000 almost is very tough, because court fees, etc., are incredibly expensive. You can see where the funds have gone. They've gone to a certain number of exchanges. In the case I'm doing now, it's gone to 5 exchanges. We're currently writing to those exchanges in a nice way to put them on notice that they've received the proceeds of crime, and ask whether they will, well, there's a lot of requests, but one, blacklist the addresses associated with the journey of those assets that have ended up with them. Number 2, freeze the funds that have been traced to them. And if they've already been deposited elsewhere, to freeze the funds, any new funds that come in, and any addresses or accounts associated with that account holder, just in case. And to provide certain disclosure of their customers who the money has been traced to. Now, they normally say, go get lost, go get law enforcement involved. That's their prerogative. They're entitled to do that. In our jurisdiction, unfortunately, law enforcement haven't quite caught up to the speed at which lawyers like me are. So we get a lot of very frustrated clients who say, well, law enforcement isn't helping me, and they're being very slow, or they're not doing anything, and we can't afford legal fees generally, whether it's mine or anyone else's. We're a bit stuck. So law enforcement's always a bit of an odd thing to deal with, because it's sort of a free service, but often you don't get anywhere unless it's hundreds of millions of pounds worth of loss. And the other thing to do then, when the exchange says we're not going to do anything, is to get a court order.
and you compel those exchanges to provide those reliefs and that disclosure for you. But it's expensive. You've got to pay my fees to prepare evidence. You have to pay a barrister, and people like Brian, who certainly in our jurisdiction, wear the wigs and plead in front of a judge. You have to pay court fees. It's a lot, and you have to provide what's called cross undertakings, which is an undertaking to say that if you're bringing these injunctions illegitimately or you're going to cause loss, then you will make them whole. You will pay for that. So I'm going to stop there because I could talk about this all day, but that is the starting point for where you are and what you do. But I have to emphasize that time is of the essence, as always. And if you get hacked or there's a scam, don't sit on it for 6 months, because it's probably already gone. Call one of us on this team on the panel and we'll figure it out. But absolutely, time is of the essence with these things.
Yeah, but Matt, before you hand over the mic, basically, there's one thing that you keep saying: time and cost, time and cost. So, okay, in the exigencies of time, you're on a chase, but the cost is quite off-putting. So if you tell somebody the court fees, so is this regime really for the everyday Tom, Dick, and Harry? Like, who is it for? Because filing a claim as it is, even just for small claims, track claim is so off-putting. So when you
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think the game broadly is having a sensible pre-action letter. So for those who aren't lawyers, the way to do things in this jurisdiction is you can't just go in and sue somebody without writing to them in advance. That's bad practice. And there's a thing called the pre-action protocols that you follow, which entitle you to receive a letter. So the letters are vital and they are cost effective, right? And what you do is you write to the exchange in certain terms that puts pressure on them to comply with you without having to seek recourse through the courts. It depends on who you speak to at the exchange and who it ends up with. We've had instances whereby we've written to exchanges and they've gone, yes, of course we'll help, and they just provide disclosure. And all of a sudden then randomly you've got a really good result and you can do something with it. But then other exchanges, or even that same exchange, they'll have someone else sitting behind the desk wherever they are and go, actually, no, you need to get a court order and be difficult. So my view of things is that actually, if you've lost £1,000 or even £100,000, it's probably not likely that you're going to go to court, which is frustrating. But it doesn't mean it's the end of the line. I'll give you an example. There is a case that I'm currently doing where 2 individuals were hacked. Well, no, they weren't hacked, actually. They were scammed in Amsterdam. And they obtained assistance from the police in England, which was very, very good. More so the fact that the police actually wanted to help. So essentially, they've got a freezer over this tether in these private wallets, and they've essentially bypassed all of the really expensive, difficult, injunctive work that I would have to do because law enforcement has done it for them. So they've essentially got loads of stuff for free. And the reason I'm telling you that is because it's always worth trying, even if you've lost a small amount, to see if you can get people like me to help the law enforcement agency, whichever one they are, to guide them using the right wording and to essentially kick them up the butt and get something done, because a lot of them just see crypto cases and go, I don't want to get involved. So it is worth a small investment, but I would never say to anybody that I'm going to guarantee your assets back, or I'm going to guarantee you the equivalent of your assets back. And this is going to be an easy process, because it's not. And in most instances, it is something that is technical. And if you don't play it right, you can fall under lots of different problems, which has happened recently in the UK under certain case law, which I won't get into.
Yeah. So, Matt, once the assets have been off-ramped as well, what happens after that?
So if the actual specific property that you have traced, so the what we call in the letters the misappropriated assets, which includes their traceable proceeds under common law and in equity, if they have been moved, the idea is that you're creating a personal claim. So you have 2 claims. You have a claim which is essentially proprietary, right? So you have a claim against the people who hold that property. But if that property has been dissipated in some way, then you can have a personal claim against the individuals who hacked you, what we call defendant 1. You may never know who they are, but you have to bring a claim against them. And then the second category is persons who ended up with the money at the exchange. So say, for instance, I don't know, the money's gone to, I don't know, Kraken. Let's just use them as an example. I'm not saying that that's necessarily always the case, but Kraken, for example. Kraken's customer will have received those funds. So the defendant that you're seeking is that customer of Kraken. And if you can make a personal claim against them for the money that they've received on the basis that they've been involved in the wrongdoing, then even if the original property has left, any new money or any money that they have or any assets that they have, you are entitled to as well.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Chini?
So just from a kind of practical perspective, I think another important thing to remember is sort of how funds are released after they have been frozen. So there are a lot of different methods by which investigators or crypto compliance companies like TRM might be able to provide information to exchanges to freeze certain assets that are connected to a ransomware scam or something like that. And once a individual finds out that these assets have been frozen, if those are theirs, they can contact law enforcement, have law enforcement provide legal process to the exchange such that an amount of the cryptocurrency can be reissued or otherwise transferred to them. So that's one of the more sort of practical endpoints to the extent that you're able to get there. Beyond that, it is difficult. So I, again, would really advise people who are, suffering from sort of small claims like the $1,000 cases to really try to find ways to work with their community to understand if there's a larger sort of pattern at play, a larger scheme from a single illicit actor or something like that, so that you can at least sort of combine into a larger number and then get more law enforcement resources, which we've already talked about are limited in order to sort of investigate and move forward from there.
Thanks, Chini. So in terms of success rates, what are law enforcement saying? Shannon, Matt, Adilah, Keniel, what are you guys saying? And Mari as well, for you, what are the success rates? If you've heard from any of your people, what are they telling you?
I mean, it probably depends mostly on the typology of the scam, right? So a lot of times, obviously speed of the essence for all these cases, right? The money moves quickly, so for us to get on top, it needs to be reported in an adequate amount of time for us to get on top of it fast enough to trace it. So that has a big portion of what we're doing here is time constraints, which falls on top of a million other things, right? Like education, resource to community, a million things. So success rate wise, that's what the biggest issue is. I would say we are about 10% successful in recovery, meaning that out of all the cases we get, we're successful in 10% of them. And that goes across, pig butchering scams, pop-up window scams where they go to a kiosk, wallet drainers, across all. We don't have metrics to determine exact statistics, but basically we're around 10%. And it really is case dependent on the typology of the scam.
Right.
And I'd like to second that.
Adilah, yeah.
So usually when I get a call, it's either before they get ready to make a transaction. There are transactions that people make with cryptocurrency. Maybe they want to buy something, maybe outside of the country that's legal, maybe a car or something like that. So they would contact me to vet the actual wallet in the chain before it goes through. And I would basically tell them, hey, I wouldn't do this transaction because this wallet is tied to illicit, purposes or things of that nature. Now, if they've already been involved in the scam, I would say the success rate is maybe, it depends on, like Matt said, the typology of the actual account. Now, in this case, maybe they forward funds from their bank and did it that way to invest in the crypto scam. Now, there's a possibility that I would be able to, the other Matt Green, he said that there was a letter, a pre-actions protocol. In the United States, we would call that escalation. We would take those escalation letters and we would take them to places of business, kind of like the SEC, or even, different or not necessarily directly to the bank, but people who regulate the banks to let them know that there is activity with this account and maybe triangulate that activity to see if there is any commonality, like Trini was talking about. Is there any commonality between cases? Because maybe they've seen this happen through their bank, like a Chase. But for that purpose, if I say that I've had 2 cases like that, there might be a 20% rate that they might be able to recover the funds because it's going through a bank. Now, anything that's out there on the cryptos, on the blockchain, we'll be able to find out who it is. But if it's not enough and if it's a smaller transaction, then we might not be able to get that money back, but we will be able to report upon that. So it's a hit or miss there.
Thanks, Adilah. Shannon, Keniel?
Can I comment?
Yeah, Mari, yeah.
So, again, it depends. I will agree with everybody else that I would say less than 10%. It depends on the type of the incident, the speed of the action. Like Matt said, the tools and technology and the jurisdiction and legal framework. But also depending on how many transactions you're talking about. If you're dealing with trading bots and where there can be thousands of transactions in just a few hours or more, like million transactions in a year, that again, it can complicate the matter. So wanted to just say that.
Thanks, Mari. Keniel?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a totally different perspective. So from a law enforcement perspective, where it's, say, IRS is involved in an investigation like that. So for us, it'll have to be, I can't put a number, but it's going to be in a high percentile as far as us being successful, in the sense that, for one, if we're involved in an investigation, it's going to be of high impact, high in value. So we're probably, because obviously you've seen the news with $3.9 billion seized or recovered, rather. These numbers are high because we're going after these huge targets that's done something totally egregious. So for us to even get involved, it has to have some high impact, high in value. So we tend to be very successful. But I think what the other issue is, right, I think somebody brought up in the comment and chat section, it's, for one, a lot of this is not even being reported. So it's hard to attribute a number as far as how successful this is being, because just like in some other general crimes, a lot's not being reported. Some people, as some have said, are ashamed. They don't want to go through it, and they just bit the bullet. They feel like they were part of some other scam. So it's like, oh, wait, what's going to be, what's going to be done, or who's going to actually help me? So you have a lot of underreporting, but thanks to the tools that are out there, I do think a lot's being traced. But you're right, time is of the essence. A lot of it cannot be recovered because it's either gone already, cashed out, or it's on another exchange. So it's tough to put a number on it, but not to toot my own agency's horn, but if we're involved, it's high probability we'll find it, seize it, and prosecute somebody.
And Keniel, I think that's important to kind of point out too, that there's really a lot of difference between state and local and feds resources as far as seizures go. You guys have 3 different avenues to seize things: civil, administrative, and criminal. We don't have that option. In Connecticut, we have criminal, right? So, and the only other option we use is a property retrieval. So if we're discussing property before, what the definition of property was, that's typically what we're using as our mechanism to seize assets with. So if I were to use civil, I could take your entire wallet, you know what I mean? And I can go after that 3.9 million. But in Connecticut, we don't have that option right now. So I can only go after what I can attribute to my victim, which may only be $1,000. Whereas if you have a larger federal institution who has those other options available to them, they can take their time and work the case because they can now crush that entire wallet. Whereas I have to move a lot quicker and hope that the attributed dollar amount is still in that victim wallet or in that subject's wallet.
Thanks, Matt. Shannon, I saw your mic was on. Chini as well. We want to hear from you about the successes. And
I think it's important to note that, as Matt said, there's a really big difference between what state and local law enforcement can do versus what the feds can do, and the resources that we each have available to us in our individual investigations. But there are 2 types of successes, in my view, when it comes to a cryptocurrency investigation. One is recovery, and the second one is getting that arrest, is finding the bad guy and actually getting someone under arrest and making them go to court and face what they did. For recovery aspect for state and local, I would say it's probably under 10%, and even in my agency. And my agency is lucky there's 2 of us right now who do cryptocurrency investigations, which is rare. A lot of agencies have 1 if they're lucky, and most of them have 0. Yeah, that's it. Most places don't have a single investigator who does cryptocurrency. But then there's also cases where, you might not be able to recover any of the victim's funds because, it went to an exchange, but by the time you got the records from the exchange, the individual's, crypto that went to that, account has already been moved on, and it's, beyond our ability to trace at that point. But there are certainly still instances where, state and local are able to, find the bad guy. And, the U.S. is unique in that we have a lot of different agencies. We need to do better at working together for sure. But we also have a lot of, I'm seeing in a lot of my cases, there's a lot of U.S. ties to people who are knowingly, involved in these scams and are, knowingly being the money launderers who are opening the cryptocurrency exchange accounts that the money's being, or the crypto is being laundered through, or they are the ones who are, creating the or registering the fake investment website that somebody used to lose their funds. So it's important to, I think, look at it in more than just the recovery aspect, because in a criminal investigation, there is always the aspect of trying to, arrest the bad guy at the end of the day.
Thanks, Shannon. Chini?
So I don't think I have much to add to what our illustrious panelists have already said. I think the word is sadly probably the most accurate. The one thing, and I sound like a TRM commercial, but the thing that I'm really getting
Actually,
from
you guys have to pay. Yeah, you guys have to pay now.
I love about this is that there really are ways that we're trying to solve for some of these issues that I'm hearing around sharing data between different organizations.
Playing games
Just hold up, Chini.
Guys, don't teach you nothing.
Sorry, guys, just mute all your mics, okay?
I just muted her. I got her.
Okay, cool. All right, Chini, sorry.
No, all good. No, I was just saying that there are tools that we're introducing to try to increase collaboration between investigators across different agencies and things like that. And so sort of hearing all of our law enforcement and other regulators talk about these issues really gives me hope that there are ways that our product can really help kind of solve some of these issues and get more money back into the pockets of victims.
Thanks, Chini. I'm sending my wallet address after this. TRM, too much. Okay, now this is the last question, all right? In terms of the end user, the consumer, and the students who are now doing our course, who want to get into this industry or this landscape rather, is Web3 and crypto worth the trouble? Because all these things about, I understand that in centralized finance, there's still scams and all, but is the technicality and the scamminess going on in Web3, is it worth the trouble? Adilah?
Let me take a stab at that real quick, just speaking from a business perspective, because a lot of the work that I've been doing and that a lot of the communities that I'm a part of have been doing is really trying to take the decriminalization out of what cryptocurrency and blockchain technology has been representative to in the media, right? We want to take away that, and we want to replace that with the opportunity that lies within this technology, right? This Web3 and also blockchain technology gives us the ability to create immutable transactions. I know everybody has heard about what's happened with TD Bank. This is a large institution in the United States that has been absconded for illicit funds. So if we have ability to trace transactions, if we have ability to create compliance programs, right, that help across the board with utilizing this technology to be able to help across the board different organizations, then the Web3 space, what we're doing, we can certainly create ties to making it better for everybody with data, with privacy, with safety. So there are great aspects of this technology that I feel are being overshadowed by the negative perspective of just, because this is just a small piece of the ecosystem. There's such a large opportunity with the technology in itself. And that's what I'll say.
All right. Thanks, Adilah. Matt Green, you're on mute.
Still, after all these years, how embarrassing that I have to still be on mute and get told that. It's embarrassing, honestly. I broadly agree with that. Like, the difficulty is even with looking at some of the questions that are posed in the chat here, one of them that I responded to was about rug pulls. And this stuff certainly in my jurisdiction in England is stuff that was prevalent 5, 6, 7 years ago. But it's not going anywhere. It's just going to different jurisdictions and scamming different people. And my sense of things is that there are, well, I know, not even my sense of things, I know that there are companies who do white label scams, and the brand will disappear and it will come up again as another head of the Hydra under a different brand. So these things are everywhere, but it doesn't mean that we need to be overly worried about this industry in the same way that I think quite a lot of people have spoken about. Probably cash is far more illicit. Just, the current state of affairs, the world of blockchain digital assets has a bit of a bad rep. So on the other hand, if you look at CBDCs, government-backed stable coins, that worries me in the other way. Too much control, too much knowing, too much ability to see what people are spending their money on. And I think that we need to find our happy medium as to where we are with everything. I'm very aware as well that my cat is meowing quite loudly. So apologies if anybody can hear that, but he's very vocal.
Thanks, Matt. Mari?
So again, I've been in this space since 2021. If it wasn't worth it, I would have been gone from this space. So despite the risk of the scams, I think it's worth the trouble for individuals and businesses. And yes, like the other guy said, while scams and fraud do occur, just like any financial market, the benefits of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology far outweigh the risks. So, decentralization and control, high return potential, innovation and technology, global inclusivity. So it's actually bringing a lot of underserved communities in the unbanked into a way that they can have a level playing field. So seriously, this place, although it can be scary, and at the end of the day, I think it depends on where you're holding your crypto, not your keys, not your coins, right? Yeah. And so, which actually lowers the chance of you getting scammed. So,
all right, cool. Keniel,
I had to reflect as everyone was speaking, and the question or the thing that resonates to me is it worth it? But then I went back and thought, was the .com boom worth it? Was the technology, was Apple worth it? Was Google worth it? It's life, right? It's about progression. Like, we need to essentially naturally go through these progression for things to get better. You got to take the bad, the good, and the ugly with every progression, right? Just as when the .com boom came in, there were people who made millions off fake websites or anything, right? It's the same thing. I think we need to go through these notions for the globe to essentially set policies, have the proper regulations, have the right information and education shared throughout the masses. So is it worth it? One word, yes.
Thanks, Keniel. Chini?
I think Keniel said that very, very eloquently. The thing about crypto that's always it always seemed a bit of a paradox to me was that it's so transparent, it doesn't really make sense that you would commit a crime there because it's so easily traceable. And so as the industry develops and as it becomes more mainstream and people have more access and sort of the secrecy behind it starts to decline, I think we'll find that it has so many uses, and I really do think that it's a solution that will have tons of use cases in the future, and it is a place to learn and understand more.
Thanks, Chini. Shannon?
I agree with both Chini and Keniel. I think you shouldn't stop progress just because of a few bumps in the road. And really, like Adilah had mentioned, the scams and the fraud that happen in the cryptocurrency, sphere right now are really a small percentage of the totality of what is occurring. And no matter what platform somebody uses to store value or transfer money or whatever it is, there's going to be scams involved, and I don't think you stop an entire realm of progress and just because of a couple of bad actors. I think we need to account for the risks involved for sure, but I do see a lot of good uses for this type of technology in the future.
Thanks, Shannon. Matt Hogan?
Yeah, I totally agree. I've never been mentally challenged so much in my career. That's why I think I love it so much. It's a lot of fun. Every day is different, right? Technology is changing literally every second. So I feel like even the aspects of risk are an opportunity, right? Those are all places to grow and to learn and potentially have a business or whatever. So I think that there's plenty of places for crypto to be used. I mean, between NFTs and blockchain as a whole, there's so many different vehicles that you can use it for, whether it's medical or transportation or just information. There's so many things you could do with it. It's really exciting. And I put it in the chat, obviously, with the TD Bank numbers. But if you looked at I think I did the math a while back because someone else was making this argument about crypto. It was one of our state's attorneys. If you took the fines from JP, Bank of America, TD at the time, not now, and I'm missing one other, and you combine those fines that's it. Yep, thank you, Keniel. Between 2000 and 2022, you could have dealt with world hunger in one full swoop. You could have made everyone not starve anymore based on the fines that these people pay for all of the AML violations that they have. So as a whole, we see a lot more on that side of the house in the fiat world, and I think that the transparency of blockchain by far makes this so much Wells Fargo. Thank you. That's the other one too. Those, oof, boy. I think that blockchain as a whole allows us to do a lot more transparently, and it makes it that much more exciting. And I feel like there's less risk if you take the appropriate measures. So,
thanks, Matt. So I'm going to open up before we now wrap up and get the final takeaways from the panelists. I'm going to open up to some questions from the attendees. Dorothy Wong, you want to start off because you had your hand up, or your hand raised rather, and you've been very vocal in the chats as well. So do you want to take the mic? I'm going to unmute you. Just give me 1 second. There you go, Dorothy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, thank you, guys. It is a very interesting section. I have a question. I have been helping people with the scams. Actually, there's a problem they are facing is that they are not. Some of them are not in US, and then in a less regulated countries. So how can they file the claim in US? No.
No, if you're looking at I mean, if they have no connection to the United States, they're not technically a victim here. I mean, if the subject that stole the assets is definitively in the United States, then we can probably do something about that. But 99.9% of scams that we deal with are not in the U.S. We have rug pulls, obviously, and I think a lot of other localized type of scams occurring. But by and large, the ecosystem of scams typically is in Southeast Asia and that general region.
Yes.
And that's where we see a lot of them taking place. Like I'll call us, spade a spade. It's CCP obviously is operating a lot of this stuff, and it's their wheelhouse is scams. So we need to. Someone was talking about in the chat. I think it's more of a social issue than anything. People need to stop. They have to stop being greedy, and have to have some morality. And if you can get that fixed, which is never going to happen, then you could probably fix a lot of the scams. But I think I'll go on a crazy soapbox, so I'll try to be careful what I say.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Dorothy. Adilah, yes.
And I'm speaking to Dorothy. Have you heard of pig butchering?
Yes, I know. I'm from Hong Kong. I know about it.
This is a type of. These are one of the many type of scams that I feel even across the board is affecting both globally and locally here in the United States. And I would just say to what you're asking, like Matt said, if it's in if the person is in the United States, but if they have businesses that are operating in the United States, now that's an opportunity, I suppose, also for law enforcement. If they have franchises that they're operating outside of to move this money, there's an opportunity there.
Right. Oh, and I have a question for Matt Green. So, Matt, there was a case in the UK that talks about the situation, the location of the scam or something like that. I can't remember the case. It talks about the location when you're serving an injunction.
The next citus of the case.
Yeah, the citus of the case. Yeah.
Yeah. You want me to? So that's Ion Science. That was back in 2020, and
Right.
that was a situation whereby it helped establish the jurisdiction. In that instance, lex citus, or if you're not speaking Latin like most of us, the location of the crypto assets is the place where the owner is domiciled. Is normally the rule of thumb. But certainly in our jurisdiction in the UK, just to make it easy for people to understand how our jurisdiction works, I can act as a member or as a lawyer in England in one of three ways normally, or we can bring a case here, should I say, in one of three ways. That's a better way of putting it. If the victim is in the UK, right? So the case I was talking about earlier, the guy is in England, an English passport, lives in England. And number two, the actual event occurred in England. So you could have, I don't know, a Frenchman on a holiday got hacked in England, and therefore there may well be an argument for jurisdiction. But lastly, if the hacker, and this is an important word, purports to be in England, and what that means is, in the event that someone uses a +44 telephone number to conduct a fraud, whereby an IP address is in the UK, whereby a registered company is in the UK, even if it's not even a real registered company. But it could be that a fake investment platform says that it's registered in England under company number XYZ, and it's absolutely just made up. It doesn't matter, because they're purporting that they're in England. We can only do with what we've got. If they say that, they're obviously doing it to add some legitimacy, and we can use that to look to bring things into the UK.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. So we'll take one more question from the audience. If there are no questions, we are going to take the takeaways from the panelists, and we'll call it a wrap. So anybody in the audience have something to say? Raise your hand or type in the question. 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's gone. So let's start off with the takeaways. Oh, there's a question. Okay, cool. Shamsuddin, it's about the quickest gun here, So Shamsuddin, please, ask your question. Just unmute yourself. Let me unmute you. Okay, cool.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brian. And it's actually an honor to be in this gathering. So thank you very much for all the panelists and everybody here present. And my question actually here is looking at some parts of the world, more precisely the Africa, where some of the countries are not even fully engaged into this decentralization with Web3 stuff and blockchain technology entirely. So with regard to such circumstances, to either the law agency or the developers, is there any specific process to like make use of in tracing a stolen asset? Like what's probably I can do it myself using my own computer to assess if perhaps some certain stolen asset, some assets get stolen from my wallet. Is there a specific process I can make use of in tracing and bringing back my asset? So this is the question I have. Thank you very much.
Well, I can speak from an investigations level because essentially I work with law enforcement. But if I was myself and I wanted to trace my own wallet, you can utilize some of the tools. If like if it's an Ethereum wallet or if it's a Bitcoin wallet, there's tools out there that you can utilize to look at the transactions. But as far as tracing, now you're going to have to spend a little money to get a license with the chain analysis. I don't think does Trim Labs give licenses to individuals? I don't think they do.
Yeah, we have a couple programs with law enforcement and specific investigators, but it's
okay. Okay, so you can't. So different services don't always allow individuals to get licensures to be able to do the geo mapping to the wallet, but you can certainly find transaction information on the web by looking at the different wallets.
Thanks, Adilah. Matt Hogan, and then I'm going to ask one last question that I've just received right now. Matt Hogan, you want to proceed, please?
Yeah, sure. Just really quickly, what I would say is there's certain things you can trace, obviously, on the open blockchain, but where TRM and chain all are worth their weight in gold is attribution, right? They have the analytics to determine who owns what wallet, and you won't know that without the proper software. So you could trace 1 million Bitcoin at wallet addresses, but you may not know it belongs to OKX or Binance or whoever. So that's where TRM and the other companies are worth their weight in gold, is trying to make those determinations. There are some free tools out there that may have some of that information, but you can't rely on them because they're not as powerful as the TRM and chain.
Right. After this session, I'm going to count the number of times TRM has been mentioned on this webinar, and I'm going to send them a bill. Chini, you're the legal counsel at TRM. I'm sending you a pre-act letter for costs. Right. Now, there's a question from Jason. And I know from what you've all said, these claims are very time sensitive. However, I think this is a very intelligent question. Is there a statute of limitations on financial crimes associated with crypto, both in the UK and in the US? Anybody?
Yeah, no, that's a yes. Just like any fraud or any type of financial statute, it just depends on the crime itself. So say it's a tax crime, it's 7 years from the last act or when a file or form was due, just like any other, like, I don't know state law, but same thing, whether it's grand larceny or petty larceny, it's the same thing. Theft of funds, it does have a timestamp on it. Yeah, whether it's 5 years, 10 years from the last act. Yes, there is.
Okay, cool. Cheers. Thank you very much. So I think it's time to wind up because we have another session right after this. So we're going to start off with Shannon. You want to give us your takeaways, please?
No, thank you so much for having me. But I guess my biggest takeaway that I would ask all of the audience members here to think about is, as you are delving into the world of cryptocurrency and virtual currency and blockchain and tracing and DeFi, is just have these conversations with your family members, with your friends, because unfortunately there's a lot of people who don't know anything about this space and they get involved in it. And those are the ones who are most likely to get scammed. So it's really on everybody who knows anything about this space to help educate and spread the word about, what to be on the lookout for and red flags and how to protect yourself. So that would be my biggest, send off as I send you guys away is help spread the word and help educate each other so we can stop the amount of scams coming in.
Thanks, Shannon. Matt Hogan.
Yep, I agree with Shannon 100%. Education is the biggest part of this, where we're talking a lot of scams here, obviously, but broadly speaking, investing, I think, is also a part of that. So educate yourself, obviously, look for resources, don't trust anyone, and look for any kind of assistance from all the experts here that you've heard from. So hopefully, if you have any questions, we can hopefully answer them for you.
Thanks, Matt. Adilah?
I will impart to the audience and locally and internationally to read up on the pig butchering scam, which I'm going to drop into our chat. Erin West, she is one of our members at the Association of Women in Cryptocurrency. This is a scam that is overtaking the United States and overtaking the world globally. Everybody should learn about this scam because a lot of times this is the type of scam that is based on the cryptocurrencies exchanges that people are making. I would impart on everybody, do not be embarrassed if you hear about somebody that has lost money. Take our information and report it to one of us because most likely it's a part of a bigger picture like Matt Hogan was saying earlier. And I would just also encourage everybody to try to learn as much as you can about this technology because even though we're having these small problems, this is going to be a part of a really big ecosystem in the future to come.
Thanks, Adilah. Keniel?
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but honestly, redundancy creates efficiency. So education is key, right? So be informed, share what you're learning with everybody else. But I think once the masses become better informed, I think we can now get over those bumps in the road or those humps and things will get better.
Thanks, Keniel.
Thank you.
Chini?
My big takeaway is that I think there is a sort of optimistic, hopeful future for all of this. I think the key is really going to be to try to educate yourself and those around you to figure out how you can avoid becoming the victim of scams and things like that. But there really are great professionals out there who are looking to support and solve those types of issues. So yeah, thanks for having me today.
Thanks, Chini. Matt Green?
Yeah, two quick things. Have I gone? No, I'm here. Two quick things. Firstly, I saw someone in the messages said, can you trace stuff yourself? Please do not do that if you want to get anywhere with any enforcement agency, purely because there are certain rules around the ways in which you do that. Your money may be mixed with others and people have these perceptions that if your money's entered into a massive account with billions in it, that you're onto a win, when actually normally those are pooled funds from exchanges and you haven't really stumbled upon anything. And the other point was about pig butchering. I'll just give you an example as a story of what, very, very briefly, as to what a client went through. So there was a lady a couple of years ago who lost £500,000 worth of tether. Her husband died of a heart attack. She received his life insurance payout. She was of an Islamic background. She went online on Facebook on a website called I Miss My Husband and became friendly with a guy who was very strongly pushing his Islamic beliefs as well. So then they ended up becoming friends. A few months later, he had socially engineered her to do Forex trading. She put some money in. He gave it back to her, doubled, and it went on and on and on until, and she was a very nice lady and believed it. She was very religious and really felt that he was doing her some good. He got her to transfer, as I say, about £500,000 worth of tether, and never saw that again until we ended up going to court and freezing funds at various exchanges. And it was a whole process. And we got some money back for her. So these things are real. Well, that's just a microcosm of things that happen relating to pig butchering, which is a general catch-all term for socially engineered scams.
Thanks, Matt Green. Marimer?
So again, just piggyback on what everybody said, education, security practices like use of hardware wallets, enable two-factor authentication, never share your private keys or C phrases, and don't let anybody in your computer, no matter who they say they are. Nobody that wants to get into your computer is going to be, it has good intentions for you. Be careful with airdrops, fake NFTs or token contract called honey pots scams and dusting attacks. The more you get into DeFi, there's, again, do your own research and you are your security or not. Okay.
Thanks, Marimer. So I have to thank all the panelists. Thank you for setting aside your busy days to join us today. I am personally grateful, and I know the NLT gang here, the attendees, they're incredibly grateful. And thank you so much for all the knowledge and information you've shared with us. We are entirely like, how do they do that? Yeah, we love you all and are grateful. Yeah. So after this, we have No Long Thing Web3 bootcamp going on. And for the attendees who are our students, we are still going to have Matt and Keniel joining us. If any of the others want to join us, they could. But we have Matt Green and Keniel joining us later on at 7 p.m. UK time. So we are going to see you guys later. So you can go relax for the next hour or so, and then we'll catch up at 7 o'clock. And bye-bye, everybody. See you next time. You can always go back to catch up on this video on YouTube as well. All right, bye-bye.